In 1907, Marshall Fields opened a restaurant on the 7th floor of its Chicago store, and something changed. Women stopped shopping and started making a day of it. Number 8 on this list vanished, and customers mailed in letters begging for the recipe. Number 3 came to children inside a tiny toy stove, and grown adults still tear up remembering it. These 25 meals turned a trip downtown into an all-day event. Hit that subscribe button. Let us count down the 25 forgotten department store cafeteria meals that made shopping an all-day event. Number 25, the Woolworth's lunch counter egg salad sandwich. Before there was fast food, there was the long chrome counter that ran the length of the 5 and dime, and the egg salad sandwich was its quiet workhorse. Hard-boiled eggs, chopped fine, folded into mayonnaise with a whisper of mustard and a shake of paprika, spread thick on soft white bread, and cut into 2 neat triangles. A waitress in a paper hat slid it across the counter on a heavy plate for about 35 cents, usually with a pickle spear and a handful of potato chips. You sat on a red vinyl stool that spun, your shopping bags crowded around your ankles, and you ate elbow to elbow with strangers who were doing the exact same thing. It was not fancy. It was not supposed to be. It was the meal that let a tired shopper sit down for 15 minutes in the middle of a long afternoon and feel, for a moment, like the day belonged to her. Number 24. The Kresge's Banana Split. For a child dragged through hours of dress fittings and shoe departments, the promise of a banana split at the end was the only thing that made the whole ordeal survivable. Behind the counter, the soda jerk split a banana lengthwise, laid it in a long glass boat, and built the whole thing in front of your eyes. 3 scoops, vanilla, chocolate, strawberry, then chocolate syrup, marshmallow, crushed pineapple, a snow of chopped peanuts, whipped cream from the pull tap, and a maraschino cherry balanced on top. It cost about $1 in the 1950s, and it arrived so tall the child could barely see over it. The genius was theater. Watching it being made was half the treat. Parents used it as currency. 1 banana split for 1 hour of good behavior in the notions department, and children held up their end of the bargain every single time. Number 23, Wanamaker's Chicken Croquettes. In the Crystal Tea Room in Philadelphia, under chandeliers and a pipe organ that actually played during lunch, the chicken croquette was the dish ladies ordered when they wanted to feel elegant. Cooked chicken was ground fine, bound in a thick, cold cream sauce, shaped into little cones, rolled in cracker crumbs, and fried until the shell shattered like glass over a soft, savory center. 2 croquettes came napped in a pale supreme sauce with a scoop of buttered peas and a parsley sprig, all for well under $1. The tea room could seat over 1,000 people, and on a Saturday it filled with women in gloves and hats who had made the trip downtown a genuine occasion. You did not eat croquettes at home. You ate them under a chandelier, and that was the entire point. Number 22, Strawbridge and Clothier's Cinnamon Buns. Some department stores understood that the smell was the sale. Strawbridge and Clothier baked their cinnamon buns fresh in the store, and the aroma drifted out through the aisles and pulled shoppers toward the food hall like a magnet. These were not the frosted, sticky monsters of today. They were tender, pull-apart squares, glazed just enough to shine, with a soft cinnamon ribbon running through the middle and a chew that came only from real butter and real thyme. A pair came warm on a plate with coffee for pocket change. Women bought them by the dozen to take home in a white box tied with string, and the whole streetcar ride back smelled like cinnamon. Generations of Philadelphians will tell you no bakery has ever matched them, and they are right, because you cannot buy the memory of the escalator and the marble floor along with the bun. Number 21, Jordan Marsh's Blueberry Muffins. In Boston, Jordan Marsh built a legend on a single muffin. Enormous, domed, crackled with sugar on top, and so packed with wild blueberries that the batter turned lavender. It was a muffin that ate like a small cake. The secret, bakers later swore, was mashing some of the berries right into the batter so the whole thing bled purple and stayed impossibly moist. It sold for a few cents at the bakery counter, and shoppers lined up for them warm, sometimes buying a bag of 6 before they had bought a single item of clothing. People planned their whole downtown trip around getting there before the muffins sold out. When the store finally closed, the recipe was reprinted in newspapers so often that Boston refused to let it die, and grandmothers still bake them and say quietly, "It is almost the same." Number 20, Lazarus Chicken Pot Pie. At the Lazarus department store in Columbus, the tea room chicken pot pie was the reason people came downtown on a cold day. It arrived in its own deep dish, the crust puffed and golden and steaming, and when you broke through it, the filling underneath was a rich, creamy stew of tender chicken, carrots, peas, and pearl onions in a sauce thick enough to stand a fork in. There was no bottom crust to go soggy, just that flaky lid and all that comfort beneath it. It cost around $1, came with a roll and butter, and it was the definition of a meal worth stopping for. Shoppers would finish their morning errands, ride the escalator up to the restaurant, order the pot pie, and let the whole afternoon slow down around it. That was the rhythm of a downtown day, and the pot pie set the pace. Number 19, Kaufman's Chicken a la King. Pittsburgh's Kaufman's, the store with the famous clock everyone met under, served a tea room chicken a la King that felt like luxury on a working family's budget. Diced chicken in a velvety cream sauce, studded with mushrooms, sweet red pepper, and a splash of sherry, ladled over crisp toast points or a puff pastry shell. It shimmered on the plate, pale gold and glossy, and it tasted like a dish from a much more expensive restaurant. For around $1, a woman who had spent the morning at the fabric counter could sit by the window, watch the city go by, and eat something that made her feel taken care of. Meeting under the Kaufman's clock and then going up for a la King was a ritual passed from mother to daughter for decades. The clock still hangs there. The a la King does not. First pattern break. Here is what the shopping malls that came later never understood. These tea rooms were not an afterthought bolted onto a store. They were the whole reason a woman put on her good coat and her hat and her gloves and took the streetcar downtown in the first place. In an era when a lady could not comfortably walk into a restaurant alone, the department store dining room was one of the few public places she could sit by herself or with her friends and be served with dignity. No husband required. No escort needed. It was independence disguised as lunch. She could shop in the morning, meet her sister for chicken salad at noon, take in the fashion show at 1, and browse the perfume counter before catching the 4 o'clock car home. The store gave her a whole day that was entirely her own, and the food was the anchor that held it all together. Number 18, Hutzler's Chicken Chow Mein. Baltimore's Hutzler's ran a beloved restaurant, and one of its quiet stars was Chicken Chow Mein, an exotic touch of the Far East for shoppers who had never left Maryland. Tender strips of chicken and celery in a light, glossy gravy poured over a nest of crackling fried noodles that snapped and softened as you ate. It came with a little dish of extra crispy noodles on the side, and sometimes a fortune teller's mood if the waitress liked you. For well under $1, it was affordable adventure, a plate that felt worldly and modern in a way that made a housewife feel she had traveled somewhere. Baltimoreans who grew up on it remember the exact table by the window where they always sat. When Hutzler's closed its doors, a whole city lost not just a store, but a dining room full of Saturdays. Number 17, Dayton's Oak Grill Popovers. In Minneapolis, the Oak Grill at Dayton's served a popover so good it became the thing people ordered before they ordered anything else. It came to the table impossibly tall, a hollow golden crown that had climbed halfway out of its tin, crisp and shattering on the outside, custardy and steaming and hollow within. You tore it open, watched the steam escape, and slathered the ragged inside with soft butter that melted on contact. It arrived free with your meal, and regulars would happily fill up on 2 of them before their chicken salad ever arrived. The room was hushed and paneled in dark oak, the kind of place where a shopping trip turned into a proper lunch, and the popover was the small ceremony that opened it. Losing Dayton's meant losing the popover, and Minneapolis has never fully forgiven it. Number 16, Bullock's Wilshire Cheese Soufflé. Inside the Art Deco Cathedral of Bullock's Wilshire in Los Angeles, the tea room served ladies who lunched in a room dripping with glamour, and the cheese soufflé was its showpiece. It came out puffed and trembling, risen high above the rim of its dish, golden brown on top and impossibly airy inside. A cloud of egg and sharp cheddar that collapsed with a sigh the moment your fork went in. Timing was everything. It had to be served the instant it left the oven, so the whole dining room ran on the soufflé's schedule, not yours. For a couple of dollars, you got a taste of Hollywood elegance, served by waitresses who had been there for 30 years and knew every regular by name. Movie stars ate there. So did shopgirls saving up for one special lunch. The soufflé did not care which you were. Second pattern break. Notice how much of this food was about being served. At home, these same women cooked every meal, washed every dish, and were rarely served anything by anyone. The department store dining room flipped that entirely. For 1 hour, in the middle of a life spent feeding other people, a woman sat down and someone brought food to her. Someone refilled her coffee. Someone cleared her plate. That small reversal, being waited on with a cloth napkin and real silver, was worth more than the meal itself. It is why the food did not need to be complicated. A chicken salad and a popover, served with respect on good china, delivered something no home kitchen could. It said, "Today, you are the guest." That feeling is exactly what we traded away for a food court and a plastic tray, and most people never noticed the moment it was gone. Number 15, B. Altman's Charleston Gardens Chicken Hash. On the 8th floor of B. Altman in New York, the Charleston Gardens restaurant was built to look like a southern plantation courtyard, complete with a painted mural and a white-columned facade, and the creamed chicken hash was the dish that ladies ordered generation after generation. Finely chopped chicken folded into a rich, sherried cream sauce, spread in a shallow dish, glazed under the broiler until the top blistered gold, and served with those famous popovers. It was gentle, luxurious food, the kind you ate slowly while your feet recovered from the marble floors below. A lunch there was an event a mother saved for a daughter's birthday, or a shopping trip that had gone especially well. When Altman's closed, New Yorkers mourned the Charleston Gardens like a lost relative, because for so many of them, it was where the good days happened. Number 14, Frederick and Nelson's Chicken Salad. In Seattle, Frederick and Nelson was the store, and its tea room chicken salad was the standard by which all others were secretly judged. White meat chicken, hand-torn rather than diced, tossed with just enough mayonnaise to bind, a little celery for crunch, and nothing else to get in the way, mounded on a lettuce leaf with a ring of tomato and a scoop of frozen fruit salad alongside. It was clean, generous, and made fresh every single morning. Ladies came in from their shopping, ordered it without looking at the menu, and finished with a square of the store's own Frango mint chocolate. That chicken salad and that whole calm, carpeted dining room was the heart of Seattle's downtown for the better part of a century. The recipe survives in old community cookbooks, but the room it was served in is gone for good. Number 13, Rich's Frozen Fruit Salad. At Rich's in Atlanta, the Magnolia Room turned a humble idea into something people still request at funerals and family reunions. Frozen fruit salad was a mixture of cream cheese, whipped cream, mayonnaise, crushed pineapple, maraschino cherries, and chopped pecans, folded together and frozen in a loaf pan, then sliced and served on lettuce like a wedge of pink, sweet, cold heaven. It sounds strange to modern ears. It tasted like a special occasion. A slice came alongside the chicken salad or the coconut cake, cool and rich against the Georgia heat, and shoppers looked forward to it all week. Rich's was more than a store to Atlanta. It extended credit when banks would not, it fed the city, and its Magnolia Room was where the South came to lunch. The frozen fruit salad was a small, sweet piece of that whole vanished world. Number 12, Hudson's Maurice Salad. Detroit's J.L. Hudson's was one of the largest department stores on earth, and its restaurants fed thousands a day. But the dish Detroiters still chase is the Maurice Salad. Julienne ham, turkey, and Swiss cheese laid over crisp, shredded iceberg, ringed with sweet gherkins and green olives, and bound in a tangy, mustardy dressing, lightened with whipped cream and a hint of lemon. It was a chef's salad with a personality, sharp and creamy at once, substantial enough to be a whole meal after a morning of shopping. For $1 or so, it fed a hungry shopper completely, and it came from a store so beloved that when Hudson's downtown building was demolished, grown adults wept in the street. People still make the Maurice dressing from smuggled copies of the recipe, trying to taste their childhood one more time. Number 11, L.S. Ayres Chicken Velvet Soup. At the L.S. Ayres Tea Room in Indianapolis, the chicken velvet soup was so good that people planned entire outings around a single bowl. It was a cream of chicken soup, taken somewhere richer, built on butter, flour, and milk, then enriched with chicken stock and shredded chicken until it turned satiny and pale gold, thick enough to coat the spoon, smooth enough to earn its name. It came with a cracker and a smile from a waitress in a starched uniform, and at Christmas, the whole tea room filled with children waiting to meet the store's Santa. For less than $1, that bowl of soup warmed a shopper straight through on a gray Indiana afternoon. The store is gone, but the recipe was rescued and is served again at a local museum, which tells you exactly how much a city can love a bowl of soup. Third, pattern break. Here is the part that gets forgotten. These meals were cheap, but the experience was priceless, and the store planned it that way on purpose. A department store did not run a restaurant to make money on lunch. It ran a restaurant to keep you in the building. Feed a woman a bowl of chicken velvet soup, and she does not go home. She stays. She shops the afternoon. She buys the gloves and the tablecloth and the birthday gift she came for, and 3 things she did not. The whole store was engineered around the meal at its center, and the meal was priced to feel like a bargain, so you would never think twice about coming back. It worked for 80 years. Then the stores got swallowed, the tea rooms got closed to save money, and the one thing that made a whole day worth having downtown quietly disappeared. Number 10, Famous Bar French Onion Soup. In St. Louis, Famous Bar served a French onion soup so revered that its recipe is arguably the most famous thing the store ever produced. Onions cooked down low and slow for the better part of an hour until they turned deep and sweet, simmered in rich beef broth with a little paprika and white wine, ladled into a crock, blanketed with a raft of bread and Swiss and Parmesan, and run under the broiler until the cheese bubbled and browned and stretched in long ropes off the spoon. It cost $1 or $2, and it ate like a whole meal. Shoppers came in from the cold, cracked through that cheese lid, and forgot entirely about the errands still waiting. The store is long gone, but the soup refused to die. Its recipe is printed in cookbooks all over the country, and St. Louis still argues about who makes it right. Number 9. Marshall Field's Mrs. Herring's Chicken Salad. Long before the celebrity chef, there was Mrs. Herring, the woman who ran Marshall Field's kitchens and gave her name to the chicken salad that Chicago worshipped. It was almost austere in its simplicity. Poached chicken, a little celery, seedless grapes for a burst of sweetness, and a light dressing, served on a chilled plate with a cluster of the store's rose-colored punch nearby. What made it legendary was consistency. A salad prepared the exact same way every day for decades, so that a woman who ate it in 1930 and again in 1960 tasted her whole life in one bite. It came with the store's famous corn sticks or a hot roll, and ladies ordered it in the walnut room without ever glancing at the menu. It was more than lunch. It was a fixed point in a changing city. Number 8. Hutzler's Cheese Bread. When Baltimore's Hutzler's finally closed, the single item the city grieved most loudly was not a coat or a china pattern. It was the cheese bread. A soft, rich loaf shot through with sharp cheese, baked fresh in the store, served warm and sliced thick alongside the tea room's salads and soups, or bought by the loaf to carry home. It was so beloved that when it vanished, customers actually wrote letters and called the store begging for the recipe, and newspapers ran it just to quiet the grief. There was nothing complicated about it, just bread and cheese and butter and the particular magic of a place that made it fresh every morning for people who had been eating it their whole lives. That is what a department store restaurant really sold. Not food, belonging. And when it closed, a whole city felt suddenly homeless at lunchtime. Number 7. Miller and Rhodes Rum Cream Pie. At Miller and Rhodes in Richmond, the tea room was famous for its Santa at Christmas and its rum cream pie all year round. It was a chilled, boozy dream, a ginger snap crumb crust filled with a light, fluffy, rum-spiked custard folded with whipped cream and set until it sliced clean, dusted with shaved chocolate on top. It tasted grown-up and indulgent, the reward at the end of a long day of shopping, and ladies ordered it while their tired children fidgeted beside them. A slice cost pocket change and delivered a small, sophisticated thrill. Richmond has never let it go. The recipe circulates in the city like a family heirloom, and every holiday season somebody makes it and posts about it, and 100 people reply that their mother took them to the tea room, and for a second, the whole store is alive again. Number 6. Rich's Coconut Cake. The Magnolia Room at Rich's in Atlanta gets a second entry because the coconut cake earned it. Towering snow white, 3 or 4 tender layers, filled and frosted with a fluffy boiled icing and buried under a blizzard of fresh coconut, moist enough to melt and sweet enough to make a child's whole week. It was the cake for birthdays, for celebrations, for the end of a big shopping day, sold by the slice in the tea room and by the whole cake at the bakery counter. Southern women judged their own cakes against it and mostly came up short. It was the taste of the Rich's Christmas windows and the pink pig ride and the tree lighting all folded into buttercream. When people say they miss Rich's, this cake is a large part of what they are missing, and no grocery store version has ever come close. Fourth pattern break. Look at how many of these are desserts and salads and soups, and notice what is missing. Almost none of it was hard to make. That was the secret. A department store tea room was not competing with a steakhouse. It was competing with a woman's own kitchen, and it won not by being fancier but by being effortless for her. She did not have to shop for it, cook it, or clean up after it. She just sat down. The chicken salad, the popover, the slice of pie, these were dishes she could technically have made at home, and that was precisely the point. Someone else made them for her on real china in a beautiful room while she rested her feet. The whole experience said, "Your time is worth something today," and for a few decades, in the middle of downtown, a hard-working woman got to believe it. Number 5. Marshall Field's Special Sandwich. Some dishes are simple. This one was architecture. Marshall Field's Special was a towering triple-decker built on toasted bread, layered with the store's chicken salad and Swiss cheese, then more chicken and lettuce and tomato, held together with long frilled picks, cut into quarters, and served fanned out on a plate with olives and a pickle. It was a two-handed operation and a genuine event. The sandwich a woman ordered when she wanted lunch to feel like an occasion instead of a refuel. For $1 and change, it fed her completely and left her feeling she had treated herself. Ladies ordered it in the walnut room after a morning in the departments, and it came out looking like something worth the wait. It was proof that a sandwich could be a destination, and for a lot of Chicago, for a very long time, it absolutely was. Number 4. Neiman Marcus Popovers with Strawberry Butter. In Dallas, the Zodiac Room at Neiman Marcus made the popover into a legend by pairing it with one small stroke of genius, strawberry butter. The popover itself was tall and hollow and golden, but the butter is what people remember, whipped soft and pink and sweet with real strawberries folded through it, melting into the steaming inside until the whole thing melted like a warm dessert you were allowed to eat before lunch. It arrived free at the start of the meal with a cup of chicken consommé, and it set the tone for everything after. A meal in the Zodiac Room was aspirational, the kind of lunch a woman remembered for years, and the popover with strawberry butter was the moment it began. It cost the store almost nothing to serve and bought a lifetime of loyalty. That is how you build a legend, one warm popover at a time. Number 3. The Higbee's Silver Grill Children's Meal. In Cleveland, on the 10th floor of Higbee's, the Silver Grill did something no place has ever quite matched. It served children's meals inside a tiny toy stove. A little enameled range, complete with pretend burners, arrived at the table, and inside its drawers and compartments were the child's lunch, a small sandwich, applesauce, a cookie, tucked away like presents. When lunch was finished, the child got to keep the stove and take it home. Grown adults in Cleveland still have theirs, dented and beloved on a shelf. It turned a shopping trip from something a kid endured into something a kid begged for, and it turned the Silver Grill into a memory so powerful that when Higbee's closed, people fought to save the room itself. That is the whole idea of this list in one dish. Not the food, the feeling, and no food court on earth has ever handed a child a stove to keep. Number 2, the Marshall Field's Walnut Room Chicken Pot Pie. In the oldest department store restaurant in America, under a chandelier, and at Christmas beside a towering tree, the chicken pot pie was the dish that defined a Chicago winter. It came in a deep individual crock, the crust risen and burnished and steaming, and beneath it a stew of tender chicken and vegetables in a sauce so rich it clung to every bite. There was no shortcut to it and no substitute for eating it in that room, surrounded by shoppers who had come downtown specifically for this. Families booked lunch in the Walnut Room the way they booked the holidays themselves, waiting in a line that snaked past the tree, all for a pot pie and the feeling of the season. It has served that pot pie for over a century, through 2 world wars and a dozen owners, and it is one of the last of these rooms still standing. Number 1. Marshall Field's Frango Mint Pie. At the top of the list is the dish that turned a piece of candy into a religion. The Frango Mint began as a chocolate, a dense, cool, minty square, and Marshall Fields spun it into a pie, a silky frozen chocolate mint filling in a dark crumb crust, piled with whipped cream and shaved chocolate, sliced and served ice cold. One bite, and the mint bloomed and the chocolate melted, and the whole downtown afternoon crystallized into a single flavor a person would chase for the rest of their life. Fields sold the candy by the green box and the pie by the slice, and shoppers bought both, one to eat now and one to carry home so the day would not have to end. Nothing on this list did more to make a shopping trip an all-day event, because the Frango was the reason you came, the treat in the middle, and the box you took home. It was the whole ritual in one small, perfect, minty bite, and it is the thing an entire generation would give anything to taste one more time. Here is my challenge. The next time you pass a mall food court, remember there was a time a shopping trip meant a popover and a pot pie served on real china by someone who knew your name. Then go find one of these, the Frango pie, the frozen fruit salad, the chicken velvet soup, and make it yourself this week. Come back and tell me in the comments which store your family loved. I want to know if the Frango pie gets more love than the Higbee's toy stove, and whether anyone out there still has their stove on a shelf. Because these were never just meals. They were a whole day worth having, and we let them slip away.